Good day. This is Donald Greene, and we're coming to you from Rigel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're presenting a series of television shows concerning the recent decisions of the United States Supreme Court affecting firearms or regulations affecting firearms, so that our listening audience and viewing audience can have a clear picture of what these decisions mean and what they don't mean. Today, I have a special guest with me, noted firearms expert Maggie Mordaunt. Maggie, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Maggie Mordaunt with Homeland Personal Protection. I'm a firearms training defense instructor locally here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay, thank you. And I actually am using Maggie on a couple of cases over the past couple of years for firearms related points. And today, our particular focus is on the incredible decision in Garland versus Cargill. This is a decision of the United States Supreme Court, which came out a few weeks ago. Here's the point. Is the bump stock an item which makes an AR Type 15 rifle or a similar type of semi-automatic weapon? Does it make that into a machine gun as defined in the ATF regulations and in the United States Code? The answer is no. In Garland versus Cargill, we have to note that this was a very strong decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. It was a 6-3 decision, and it was authored by Justice Thomas, who had also issued the court's opinion in New York Pistol Association versus Bruin in 2022. But in this case, the U.S. Supreme Court tackled a very important issue, not on the Second Amendment. We want to make that very clear. May we have the first slide, please? We want to make it very clear what Cargill has decided and what it does not decide. The issue is whether under the Federal Administrative Procedures Act, under Title V of the United States Code, does that authorize, or was the action by the ATF consistent with the procedures and regulations promulgated under the Administrative Procedure Act? The answer is no. The ATF did not follow the correct procedures. But also in this decision, the court allowed Congress, if Congress wants to declare bump stocks illegal, then it can do so. It requires both houses of Congress to pass the law. We don't know if it's going to do it with Republicans, majority in the House, and Democrats and majority in the Senate. But the issue here is not politics. The issue here is, what does the Supreme Court rule? May we have the next slide? Okay. The court noted what is the function of the bump stock. We'll get into that in just a moment. And in an incredible decision, the court goes through this in excruciating detail, where it shows what is the mechanical operation of the bump stock. The decision itself actually has schematic drawings of the trigger mechanisms and bump stocks, so that you can actually see what they're talking about, which was an amazing piece of legal scholarship. It was just amazing. So you can actually see what we're talking about, not just read the words. May we have the next slide, please? So also the Supreme Court, 6-3 decision about administrative rulemaking, not a Second Amendment issue. So does this bump stock allow you to fire more than one round in a single pull of the trigger? And Ms. Mordaunt will explain what the bump stock function actually is, because we have one here today.
Yes. So to answer your question, technically, it doesn't fire multiple shots at a time. It's the fact that your finger is literally affixed onto the trigger, and as the gun goes back and forth, this allows it to slide in that fashion. So you'll basically take off your grip, and the stock will come off. You'll put the buffer tube into here, and then your trigger housing is right in this area, and you have this other little dandy piece to put on there as well to put it on. So technically, it's just that your finger is in place, and if you can kind of see how my finger is in place, where the gun is going back and forth. It's all that gas pressure and the movement of the rifle that's going back and forth. And it's not that you're holding the trigger down, because in full automatic, you're holding the trigger down and you have a second sear as well as a third pin that is in place in your full auto. And then with a semi-automatic, it is basically you pressing the trigger and the stock is not moving. And those are all the three different components that you would actually see. So for your slide, this is a slide fire, and so you're just basically keeping your finger on there, and this system is just going back and forth as your finger is placed on the trigger itself.
Now, Maggie, you teach AR-15 platform type weapons to men and women, correct?
Men, women, and children.
And I take it that in your training that the weapons are almost always semi-automatic.
Yes.
Unless you've got a specialized training where I've gone to, where we have trained with fully automatic weapons, we own them, we are authorized to have these. We make sure that we carry our tax stamps everywhere we go when we have these types of weapons. But explain to us, what is the benefit of a bump stock as opposed to a regular configuration of an AR platform rifle?
So the bump stock is more for sporting. It's really not something that I would use for defense. It's not something I personally wouldn't use it for hunting. I'm also a hunter pro for Bass Pro Shops, so when teaching different rifle styles, this is really more of a novelty item, to be honest. I mean, it's like putting decorative items or even a forward grip on a AR-15 or on a carbine style rifle. It's really not something that has any other uses, in my opinion, other than that it's just fun to shoot. It's fun to use. It's really fun.
Would it be practical for, you also teach and you also instruct in home defense, correct?
Correct.
Would this be something that, and we'll get into this, again, we're focusing on the administrative rulemaking, not a Second Amendment issue. Would you use a AR-15 platform with a bump stock, like for home defense?
I personally wouldn't.
Okay, and why?
I just really feel that when pressing the trigger for home defense, if you're using an AR-15, I do recommend for home defense the calibers of 55 grain Spear Gold Dot or 75 grain Spear Gold Dot for home defense. It's a great round. I highly recommend more an AR-15 than I would a shotgun, only because of the manageability of the felt recoil. For this, because there is that movement, you want to make sure that every time you press the trigger, that is something that you physically made the decision to do that, whereas with this bump stock, because it's going to be moving back and forth, and if your finger is still placed on that trigger, I think that takes away less control of your ability to make the decision to press that trigger. Not that there's anything wrong with the bump stock. Again, I think it's more of a novelty item, in my opinion, because of the need to manage felt recoil as that gun is moving.
May we have the next slide, please? Now, let's look at Garland versus Cargill. We have a decision which, again, specifically says, what does this allow a weapon to do? It allows, like Maggie points out, the recoil comes back, and your finger is actually not more than one round is coming with a single press of the trigger, which is a defining characteristic of a machine gun. So we want to make sure that the court points out that this isn't a Second Amendment issue, and that we, the United States Supreme Court, are the ultimate arbiters of what the law means and what the law is. I mean, this has been a principle of judicial function for thousands of years. The Old Testament is ripe with it. In fact, there's a whole chapter in the Bible in Judges. Samson was a judge, Ruth was a judge, that they knew the law and how to apply it. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court is saying we're going to decide what the law is, and we're taking it under our wing. Let's have the next slide, please. Now, the court does not say that Congress cannot outlaw the bump stock. It does not say that Congress cannot outlaw certain features of weapons. But the thing is it's a narrow decision itself. And can a state outlaw a bump stock? Yes. I think that's coming next in Nevada. It is in California. And so the thing is that does this decision, does Garland versus Cargill apply to the states? No. It can be used for its persuasive value because Garland versus Cargill is a specific decision on the Federal Administrative Procedure Act and the way in which the ATF went about classifying this particular item. It is not a Second Amendment issue. We want to make that really clear. So, if it was a Second Amendment issue, it could apply to the states directly. But I have a feeling that some state courts are going to say, "Wait a minute, Mr. Greene, we have to make a distinction here." Let's have the slide, please. There we go. Now this is a different configuration of the bump stock, and this is the last slide. So can you again, for the viewers, explain these particular what that bump stock is on the back with the lighter color? Explain that.
For sure. You have the trigger housing that is on top of the grip, and you would just place your finger inside of the trigger guard, placing it, resting it on the inside onto the bump stock just above that triggered area. And just it slides back and forth. You have the buffer tube that is inside of the stock of the bump stock. It is just banded on there, and you press the trigger, but technically you are pressing the trigger every time because once it comes back, it does allow for that reset. And so it is just you're pressing the trigger every single time, but with the resting of your finger as the slide goes back and forth.
Now, there are some kits out there which can be purchased, providing that you have the proper licensing to do so. To make a weapon like an AR-15 into fully automatic, you'd have to get your tax stamp and everything.
Yeah.
But in those configurations, Ms. Mordaunt, is it true that you actually have to do something with the trigger housing?
So there is a drop-in. You basically have to put in a second sear, and then there's also a third pin. When you see full auto AR-15s or ARs, you'll see that the breached area has a different sort of system where when the trigger comes back, or the internal hammer system comes back, it actually strikes that second sear, blocking it from the first sear. And that's how it moves incongruent with that little drop-in second sear. So there's a movement. I guess you'd have to really watch a video to see it, but it's literally, there's a plate that's in there, and you have your internal, and then your buffer tube itself has either a thicker block or a thin block. And so the thicker block is really what's going to actuate that second sear, allowing it to remain every single time it comes back. It's going to hit that second sear with that buffer tube. And I guess I hope I'm explaining it right. So it is going to hit every single time. It's not going to have any sort of lag time and in that reset.
Does the bump stock, for example, the sample you have here today,
Yes.
does the bump stock in this configuration require the owner to do something to change the configuration of the trigger?
So
Or does this just pop in?
It's just pops right on. There's nothing else you have to do. You don't have to drop in any sort of second sear. It works along with that single sear already. You would just take off the grip and the buttstock, and you have another little piece here that locks it in place. And that's actually how you just put it together. It doesn't change the power of the gun. And it just basically is a way where you you'll place your finger right on there. I don't know if you can see that part. This little part right here, it even has where you can index that little area where you just hold your finger on there. Once you press, and with the inertia, with that movement back and forth, just keeps your finger in place to keep tapping onto that trigger. So there's nothing major mechanical. A 10-year-old could change it out if you wanted to show them to how to change it out. They could. It's not that hard to change this out. And it's really fun. That's the fun factor of this is really what we're looking at. It's not something that, in my opinion, I would say is the manageability of the felt recoil is not, and it's not even like a full auto. I've shot many full autos. The full autos tend to raise a little bit more. With this one, you have a little bit more you're able to manage felt recoil much more easily with a bump stock than you can with a full automatic. The full automatic does actually move much more quickly than this bump stock. So I can say that this is not like a full automatic in the sense that you get more felt recoil, because it does have a little less felt recoil because it's not as rapid as that of a full auto.
No, thank you. Again, the purpose of this particular show is to show the viewers and the listening audience that the U.S. Supreme Court has took this case not as a constitutional issue, but on administrative rulemaking by a federal agency. That'll be the subject of our next show coming up. But I want to make it very clear that Garland versus Cargill is not a constitutional decision. It is a decision based on the Federal Administrative Procedure Act, which has been upheld by Congress for years and traces its genesis to a case called United States versus Myers in the 1890s. Talking about administrative rulemaking. So right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is saying we have rules in place. The ATF, even though it suggests rules and suggests things to Congress, it is Congress which ultimately decides what is or is not going to be a lawful weapon or something accessory to own. And that's why Garland versus Cargill does not interfere with Congress's with Congress's prerogative and opportunity and constitutional duty to define what items can or cannot be used as accessories on particular types of weapons. Again, thank you so much today. You contact Maggie she has her information on the streamer coming up, and you're always welcome to call me. It's Don Greene, 702-409-8239. And we do have the new Nevada reciprocity cards available. It became effective on July 1st, 2024. There are just a few minor changes from last year on the reciprocity. You're always welcome to call me. We'll send you the card, or we'll be at all the gun shows, and you're welcome to grab a card from us in there. And thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Mordaunt, for your help.
Thank you.